We're going to do another story from Careful Hans, Beacon Reader number 4. And the story is called Mr. Rooster, Mrs. Hen, and Mrs. Grey Duck. And that's the picture of them. Do you know what a rooster is? Yes, a rooster is a male hen or a male chicken. And Mrs. Hen is obviously the female. And Mrs. Grey Duck is very obviously a grey colour duck. I wonder why they call them Mr. and Mrs. And they've made them human by making them Mr. and Mrs. because that's not how we refer to animals, is it? They don't get married and get the titles of Mr., Mrs. or Miss. Those belong only to human beings. Well, anyway, let's see what the story tells us. All right. Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen lived in a little house. The house was on the bank of a deep river. They found plenty of good fat worms to eat and were very happy. Near them lived Mrs. Grey Duck in her little house. Okay, so these animals have been made human. They've got houses. They've got neighbors. Where do animals like hens and ducks normally live? Do they have homes of their own? Or do they live in farms, in farmers' homes, or in barns? That's where they normally live, right? Okay, so let's see what the story says. Now, Mrs. Grey Duck did not like Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen. She doesn't like her neighbors. Is that a good thing to be or to do? Is that a good attitude to have? Not to like your neighbors? Oh dear. Okay, let's continue. She never went to call upon them. When they met, Mr. Rooster always crowed, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" And Mrs. Hen would hold her head up very high. Oh, why do you think Mrs. Duck doesn't like them? What do you think holding your head up could possibly mean about someone? Have you heard of a word called proud? Do you think the Hen family are proud? Let's see what the story tells us. Then Mrs. Grey Duck would say, "Quack, quack, quack," in a very loud voice. "Quack, quack, quack." Oh, so that's how they greeted each other. Okay, let's continue. And she would waddle away to the river. Do you know what waddling is? Have you seen a small baby wearing a pamper? And the way they walk when they wear a pamper, their bottom goes like that? Yeah, well, that's how ducks walk too. So she waddled away to the river. When the time came for the nuts to be ripe, Mr. Rooster said to Mrs. Hen, "Let us go to the nut tree on the hill. There we can eat as many nuts as we like." Mr. Chipper Squirrel has more than he can use. "Yes," said Mrs. Hen, "a meal of nuts will do us good." Oh. "Let us take our little cart along," cried Mr. Rooster. "A few nuts will taste good when winter comes." "Oh, how wise you are," said Mrs. Hen. So the next morning, Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen started off. Mr. Rooster was harnessed to the little cart. Do you know what it means to be harnessed to something? Have you ever seen a bullock cart? So there's this wooden cart which is on wheels, and in front of the cart there is a bull or maybe two bulls, and they have a sort of strap connecting them to the cart. So when they walk, they pull the cart with them. Well, that's called a harness. Have you ever seen mamas and papas? They wear a sort of thing that they put their babies in, and then they walk around maybe on the back or on the front. Well, that's a harness too. They've harnessed some sort of contraption, some sort of sitting device for their babies on their bodies. They've strapped it on, they've harnessed it, and then they put their babies in there. All right. So that's what Mr. Rooster did. He was harnessed to the cart. Soon they came to the hill where the nut trees grew. Mr. Chipper Squirrel said he was glad to see them. He led them to the spot where many nut trees grew. The brown nuts lay thick upon the ground. First, Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen ate all they could. Then they began to fill the cart. Mr. Rooster took a big fat nut in his bill. You know what his bill is? It's his beak. After he had dropped it in the cart, he ran for another. Well, obviously, they're going to use their beaks to pick things from the ground. They don't have hands and feet like we do, right? They've just got 2 claws or 2 legs with claws, and those they need to stand upright. Other than that, they've got wings. I don't know how easy it would be for them to collect the nuts with their wings. Possibly not too easy. Anyway, so they used their bills. Then Mrs. Hen picked up a nut and dropped it in the cart. When the cart was full, Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen were very tired. "Oh, I cannot walk a step further," cried Mrs. Hen. She sat down upon the pile of nuts in the cart. Then she asked Mr. Rooster to drag her home. "I will not," cried Mr. Rooster. "I'm just as tired as you are. I will be the driver, but I will not drag the cart." While they were talking, were they talking or arguing? Sounds a bit like arguing. Mrs. Grey Duck came waddling up. "Quack, quack, quack! Why are you stealing all my nuts?" she cried. "Quack, quack, quack! Who said you can come here to my nut trees?" And she ran with her open bill at Mr. Rooster. But Mr. Rooster was not afraid at all. He ran at Mrs. Grey Duck and pecked at her with his bill. Oh, there's a duck and a rooster fight going on. At length, that means in a while, Mrs. Grey Duck cried, "Stop, stop! I will do anything that you wish. I will even drag your cart home for you." This pleased Mr. Rooster. What do you think that meant? When Mrs. Grey Duck said, "Stop!" what do you think happened? Who do you think won the fight? Obviously Mr. Rooster, because Mrs. Duck was the first one to say, "Stop! Time out! I've had enough. All right, you win." That's what happened. This pleased Mr. Rooster. So he harnessed Mrs. Grey Duck to the little cart. Then he jumped upon the driver's seat. He cracked the whip and told Mrs. Duck to start. Mrs. Grey Duck waddled off as fast as she could go. All went well till they came to the river. As soon as Mrs. Duck saw the water, she began to run. "Stop, stop, stop!" cried Mr. Rooster. "Help, help!" cried Mrs. Hen. Oh, Mrs. Hen was still sitting at the back with the nuts. But Mrs. Grey Duck only waddled faster. Why do you think she started waddling faster when she saw the river? What can she do that the hens can't do? Down went Mrs. Grey. Down went the cart. Down went Mr. Rooster. Down went Mrs. Hen. Where did they go down? Into the water. Splash, splash. Into the water they all went. The cart floated on the water. On top of the cart sat Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen. Oh, and how funny they looked. Oh, how wet they were. Oh, there's still another page. Mrs. Grey Duck began to swim around. She laughed, "Quack, quack, quack, quack," at poor Mr. Rooster and poor Mrs. Hen. "Oh dear, good day, Mrs. Duck," cried Mr. Rooster. "Please drag us to land." "Yes, yes," clucked. "Yes, yes," clucked Mrs. Hen. "Please save our lives. We will do anything you wish." Oh, who said that just a page ago? Wasn't it Mrs. Duck who said, "I'll do anything you wish"? Well, this is what they call the tables have turned. When earlier The rooster was on top, and Mrs. Hen had to say, "Forgive me, let me go, I'm going to do whatever you wish." Now the tables have turned, and now she's on top, and they are begging for her to take them to safety. At length, that means in a while, Mrs. Grey Duck took pity on them, and she swam to the bank with the little cart. Then she let Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen up the patch to the door of her pretty little house. "Come in," she quacked, "and dry your poor old feathers before my warm fire." So Mr. Rooster and Mrs. Hen went in and dried their feathers before the warm fire. Wow! Do you think that was a kind thing for her to do? They were so horrible to her, but was she horrible back? Doesn't seem like it. She's worrying, and she's considerate about their wetness, and she's inviting them into her house to dry in front of her fire. Let's see what she does next. When they were dried, Mrs. Grey Duck and Mrs. Hen divided the nuts between them. She didn't do tit for tat. Even though the tables were turned, she wasn't bad to them as they were bad to her. She was kind to them because that's who she is. She obviously is a kind person. And from that day on, the three were fast friends. Wow, isn't that a beautiful story? When the tables turn, you have the right to, and you have the chance to give people back the bad that they did to you. But if you do, then you're just as bad as they are. But if you stay and you behave like the person that you are, maybe they'll learn a lesson. Right? Mahatma Gandhi said, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind." That means if someone does you wrong and you do them wrong back, then everybody is walking in darkness and everybody is doing wrong things. Right? And that's the picture of the three friends. Sometimes it's, even though you can take revenge on someone, maybe a better idea to gain a friend. Don't you think? So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.